Thank you, Rai. So I probably would have been the happiest person. So I moved from finance to data science and analytics in 2015. So one of the biggest hurdles in corporate sector to transform digitally and to data, one barrier is the leadership belief. And today when Anura Kumar Disanayak talks about using data and informed decisions to build this country, I mean, that is what any analyst or a data scientist or a digital transform coach would like to hear. And I'm glad that we have a leader like Anura and the team who believes in data. So today, before I start, I remember when I did my A-levels in commerce, there was a favorite question in the commerce paper. I think it's still there. It's at the end of the paper. Thus, differentiate economic development and growth. I think still our people in this country does not know the meaning of economic development and growth. We have been talking about economic development, and you heard earlier in the speeches both Dr. Harini and Anura how the inequality and it has not got distributed to continuously improve the lives of the people. So the growth has taken place, but development has not taken place. So the today's focus in this presentation is to give you the components and the areas that we would focus in building this economy. So when we talk about a resilient economy, we know there will be internal and external shocks, man-made shocks, the natural disasters and external shocks, but a country or economy should be able to come up fast and recover fast. That's what a resilient economy means. Before we get into how to build or put this on track and what are the components that we are going to use, we need to understand where are we now. We are in a bankrupt situation or near bankruptcy where our foreign trade deficit for the last few decades, it has been around $8 billion. It has not eased. The exports have not increased enough or the imports have not reduced. The fiscal deficit is going out of control. It's not sustainable. Currently, it's about 2,400 billion LKR, and that is the money that should be utilized to build our corporates and businesses. And again, the foreign debt of 53 billion that we owe to the world, whether we have invested this 53 billion into a productive investments that could yield our GDP. And when it comes to the income inequality, I think we discussed enough that there's a problem that we need to fix. And the contracting of the economy that we are forecasting a contraction of about 9% in the years to come. So whilst we have all of this in the back of our mind, I'm going to explain you the fundamentals of our economic policy. Since I was a student, or even when I was working as a professional, we had various governments and various leaders, but we never heard of a vision, a country where the country should head. Now, for Jatika Janabala Vegya, we are very clear that we are driving or thriving for sustainable development. We would be driving our resources and people to take a part or integrate ourselves into the global value chain. If we can't do it, if you can't take the part of the production, if you can't be part of that value chain, we would not be able to bring those benefits to our nation. And again, we are a small nation, we might not be able to produce jobs for everyone. But 350,000 people come out of each year, so we need to create a competent human capital that we can use for our production and services in the country, as well as we can win the world where our people will go outside as entrepreneurs or service providers to build this nation going forward. As we discuss along this session, it's about an inclusive society, inclusive economy, that how do we try to create opportunity to people who does not have opportunity to get into the economic development process. The 4 pillars that we would use in building our economic policy, one is about the production plan, where we would have a strategic plan for the country which will be agreed with you all, where should the country direct. I know all the corporates here, you have 5-year plans, 3-year plans, and again a 1-year plan. But as a country, have you heard about it? Do you know where your industry should go in the next 5 years? We haven't. So we need to set that up. You have the knowledge, we will facilitate and we will create that plan. And again, for us to achieve this plan, we need the human capital. We can't have the current education system. We need to build the capacity that who can support this production and the skills that we need in this journey. And also, I think this is not a thing that we should even debate. It's the efficient and the effective government. The governance has to be efficient and effective to drive the economy, and that is a key pillar that we would look forward to. And the international trade piece. We know we can't survive on our own. There's international trade, and the global trade, global economy is there for us to capture, which we have not captured so far. And whilst we make these subtle changes or drastic changes, we need to ensure that we take into account that the geo-heritage values of Sri Lanka is shaping these changes. Because we have a culture, we have a heritage, and we have a location that we need to consider when we are making these changes. So as Anru Kumara said, that it's about the consumer. As corporate people who are here, who are the business leaders, we all know, we talk about consumer centricity. Consumer is there in the center and we evolve around us. So as a government, we are also feeling the same thing in terms of how do you bring these consumer demands or consumer needs and wants through a quality product and a reasonable price and a continuous supply both to the end consumer as well as our production processes. And when we are doing that, we need to build an efficient market. We need to build a competitive market, and the market has to be transparent. So when we say competitiveness, we need to allow people to come into businesses so that you compete. When you compete only, the quality and the price will improve. And also the transparency. As a country, we don't have a transparency. We don't know where the profits lie. We don't know the value chain. Because if you talk about today's world, it's about Industry 4.0. Where we talk, there is no barriers between the value chain, and there is a transparent wall that shows everything from the raw material supply to manufacturer to supply chain to the end consumer. Everything is visible. So transparent market is what we will drive for, and again efficient market. There's enormous amount of waste in our country. We have a lot of agri production which does not reach the consumer. Half of that get wasted. And also we have inefficient transportation systems, and demand supply is not based on data, as Andrew said clearly, because the data is not telling us what is the demand. Data is not telling us what is the supply that we would have. There's huge inefficiency. As we try to achieve these objectives for the consumer, the government will intervene in two ways. One is the regulations. So we will use, even now we have regulation, but that are not getting executed. And also organizing the market. There are various ways we can organize the market. We can invite the private investors to take on, this is the demand we want to create, please take, we will support you. And we can use the public ownership. As we clearly said, we will intervene clearly on the two areas that we would. And also using cooperative structures. The cooperative structures are globally very much accepted as a very efficient mode of getting capital and also redistributing the benefits of that organization. And the strategic investments. We might have to do a lot of strategic investments as we go along, so that we might have to jointly invest. We have to invest, the government might have to invest, because certain industries we have not touched even. There are strategic investments like ports that we will have to think differently. How do you organize these markets? So when I said about the production plan, I think there is some misconception that, there can be like a plan that everybody has to stick to it. No, it's about what are these focus industries that we're going to do. Every country has done it. Germany has done it. Japan has done it. Singapore has done it. They have decided what are their competitive advantages. As a country, they have decided these are the 5 or 6 industries we are going to prosper. Next 10 years, this is where we will put our mind time. This is where we'll put our head to. So in terms of Sri Lanka, we have IT industry at 1.6 billion, which can be taken to 3 billion. Apparel industries doing on their own with 5 billion, which can be taken to 8 billion. Tourism industry, we can take from 4.4 billion obviously to 8.8 billion potential. So we need to have a focus. We can't do everything. So we need to understand what is, and that will be inculcated into a national plan that even a child who goes to school will understand. At schools, we don't know. If you ask a child that coming out of school, what are your industries in Sri Lanka? He will like, what? I don't know, right? Because when we were young, it was told tea, coconut and rubber, and that's it. Right? And then the workforce, we need to create a workforce we need to underpin workforce for this production or services plan. So the education has to get reformed, the right skills and the technologies has to come into education, and then we will also look at the SME sector. As we clearly say, SME sector will allow us to distribute the wealth in more equal way, equitable way into the society, because as we grow the SME sector, which is to 53% now, if it's a developed economy, it goes closer to 90%, where the contribution of the SMEs. And the government accountability, this is something you wouldn't have heard or thought of, right? With Jatika Janabalawegaya government, we will be responsible for the industry. We will be responsible for your business, because if you fail, we all fail. If you fail, we lose jobs. If you fail, we lose our dollars. That as a government, we will have to be responsible. Has there been any minister who has been responsible that we couldn't reach the targets? I have heard about the IT industry going to 5 billion, and I have been listening to this since 2012. But there's no responsibility in the government. The private sector tries on their own and corporates tries on their own, but there is no accountability into the government. As much as we would be responsible for the citizens, we will be equally responsible for all the businesses in the country, because we need these businesses to succeed. So when you talk about the human resources, this is very important, right? So if you create a corporate plan, a business plan, then you will go to the HR, your HR organization and say, these are the skills I want. This is the critical talent. These are the talent that I need to save. And these are the skills that we need to build within next 5 years, the technology, the digital literacy, the numeracy. These, you will tell the HR team, this is what you need to do. So as a country, also the same thing. If you have a production plan, you need to have a human resource plan that will deliver. And then when you deliver that, we need to create knowledge. I don't think we have ever created knowledge. We have exam system that does not create knowledge. We don't inculcate entrepreneurship. We don't inculcate innovation. We don't create people who can ask questions and innovate. So the knowledge is from university system to school systems. We have to ensure that the knowledge is ability to build. And the skills and the attitudes. We are very conservative nation that we don't want to take risk to do business also. And then the skills from the people in terms of digital literacy and language skills like English, we need to have those skills as we go on, and we have to create a global citizen. We can't look at only Sri Lanka and develop this country. There's enormous amount of opportunity. So if you create a global citizen, you need to have the right skills and the attitudes and the values for you to go to the world and win that world like India has done. And also a socially conscientious people, because now we know the consumers are very much concerned about environment. People are concerned about ethics. People are concerned about gender. There are so many factors that you consider when you try to consume these days. So we need to create a society that goes with the demands of the world. And when you talk about the government, there are few things that we would consider very effectively. I mean, government is again an organization that serves purpose, serves consumers, right? All of us are consumers of the government. So if we want efficient service, we need to have, the government should have KPIs. What are your consumer deliverables? What is the speed you want to deliver? What is the efficiency you want to deliver? What is the cost per service? There should be KPIs for all these government institutions, and we have to establish those KPIs and drive it for the effective government services. And the digitization and transparency has to come in. It will be tough at the initial stage, but we will have to bring in, because if you don't digitize, the efficiency cannot be derived. And also with the digitization, you can bring transparency, which can eliminate corruption for good. And again, rule of law, right? So if you are not implementing your law or the constitution in the country, where is the safety for the government servants? All their hands are tight, right? They can't actually do what they're supposed to do because they don't have protection. So we need to establish rule of law before we establish efficiency in the government sector. The last piece about this area is the independence of the government service. As politicians, as aspired politicians who are also here, we will not intervene in decision making. We should not. We have a vision, we are a management team, we will ensure we manage, and the particular department and the experts who are in that, the professionals will take decisions. Currently what happens is every decision that every department want to make or policy change that they want to make, the politician gets involved because his interest, the conflict of interest is so high that we have created this crisis for our country. So lastly, the last pillar is about the international trade and how do we deal with the world. So we do need a strong foreign service. Do you think we have strong foreign service? Right? So do you think that they will go and try to win markets for us? Do you think they try to go and bring technology for us? Do you think they will create inroads for our SMEs to go into those markets? No, they don't do any of those. But our foreign delegates from Jatika Jana Balawegaya, we will give them the KPIs, and if they don't achieve it, we will bring them down. That's how we will govern that service. And also, the concerns about being aligned to China, being aligned to India, being aligned to USA, whatever, whatnot, we want to have a non-aligned bilateral ties. These bilateral ties should be based on merits and competencies. As Sri Lanka, we have competencies, India has competencies, we have to come into a place where both parties are benefited and we should not be aligned, and we don't have a policy that's aligned to either of those countries. And the trade agreements for new markets. We have penetrated enough the Western market, and the Western market is also falling in one way and also saturated in another way. But there are emerging markets like Africa, India, East Asia, which we have not done anything over the last 20 years, where our corporates on their own trying to bridge those markets. I think it's absolutely difficult if you even think of going to India. And in the ease of doing business, I think this has been discussed many places, but I think nothing has happened. So ease of doing business again comes into integrity and honesty of the governance, right? If we can establish the right structures, right policies, and allow that to happen, organizations both locally and internationally will be able to do their business at ease. Again, it will create democracy for doing business, because you don't need government connection, you don't need to call your mayors or your politicians to get things done. And again, on the fifth one is the focus on the FDIs. Who would invest in a place when there's no plan? Which investor would come into a country if you ask the president of that country, what is your plan? We will take this industry to here, this is 10-year plan, this is human resource plan, this is the infrastructure plan, you can come and invest. We will tell this is how we will take agriculture. This is how we will take the apparel industry into more of a modern apparel industry where value addition is taken place for design and development. And come and invest in this. Come and invest in our education in terms of bringing those education that we can take this country to different places, because we know what we need. And as we see the last 10 years, we only got about 10 billion worth of foreign direct investments, where Vietnam got 13 billion on a single year. So everything, all these economic policies are cool, but it's still that you need good governance to ensure these are in place. And lastly, what I want to tell you is all these components are negotiable. We can discuss what we need to do, right? And the policy framework that we presented today can get detailed out each into industry, what is our fiscal policy, what is our monetary policy, what is our foreign policy, will detail it out by the general election so that people can vote on a principle and a policy that's going to last for next 5 to 10 years. So as Jathika Janabalawege, we invite you to understand us, talk to us. Don't listen to people who interpret us without talking to us. We have absolute clarity on what we want to do, and we are very keen that with you all we can do it, because it's you who has to build this country. We will give the guidance, we will give the vision, we will give the facilitation, we will give the support that's required for Sri Lankan private sector to boom and take this country to great heights for my children and their children. Thank you.
තරම් ලස්සන සුන්දර රටක් ලෝකෙ කිසිම තැනක නැහැ. මේ රට විනාශ කරලා තියෙන්නේ අපේ වැරදි ප්‍රතිපත්ති නිසා. ඒ වැරදි ප්‍රතිපත්ති ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම නිසා ඒ ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමේ ඵල විපාකයක් තමයි මේ වර්තමාන ආර්ථික අදබුදිත් අපි භුක්ති විඳින්නේ. ඒකින්ද මේකෙන් බැහැර වෙන්න ඕන. ඒකට ඒ යහපත් ප්‍රතිපත්ති ක්‍රියා කරන්න පුළුවන් නායකෝ අපි බිහි කරගන්න ඕන. නායකෝ ඇති කරගන්න ඕන. ඒ හින්දා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා මේ ලංකාවේ එවැනි නායක පරපුරක් මේ අධ්‍යක්ීම් සමග බිහි වෙයි කියලා. ඒක බිහි කිරීමේ වගකීම තියෙන්නේ මේ රටේ ජනතාවට. මේ ජනතාවට ඒ සියලුම නායකෝ ඇත්ත කතා කරලා ක්‍රියාවයි කතාවයි දෙකම එක වෙන්න ඕන, ඵලදායී වෙන්න ඕන.
ලංකාව විශාල ආර්ථිකයක් නෙවෙයිනේ. කුඩා ආර්ථිකයක්. එතකොට දැන් හැමතැනදීම අපි වැටිච්ච තැන් වලින් අපි බොහොම ඉක්මනට ගොඩ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒ මේ වගේ මේ කරප්ෂන් ලෙවල් එක වැඩි වෙලා ඒ හැමදේම තිබිලත් අපි යම් කිසි විදිහකට මිනිස්සු නැගිටලා දිනතර. එහෙම නැතුව මේ කරප්ෂන් ලෙවල් එක නැත්තරම නැති හෝ අඩු තත්ත්වයක්, ඒ වගේම මිනිසුන්ට මේ ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති පැහැදිලි තත්ත්වයක් තියෙනවා නම් මං හිතන්නේ මේ ඉච්ඡර අමාරු වෙන එකක් නෑ මේ බිස්නස්මන් කෙනෙක්ට මේ ආර්ථිකයට එක්ක සහභාගී වෙන්න.
මම පෞද්ගලික විශ්වාස කරන දෙයක් තමයි රටක ආයෝජනය කරනවා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඒ රටට ඒකින් යහපතක් වෙන්න ඕන. අයහපතකට වඩා. ඉතින් අපි කැමති ඕනම මේ ටැක්ස් එකක් ගෙවලා ව්‍යාපාර කරන්න. නමුත් අකමැතිම දේ තමයි දේශපාලඥයෝ පස්සේ යන්න, දේශපාලන නිසා නිලධාරීන් පස්සේ යන්න තියෙන එක. तो ඔය ක්‍රමය ලංකාවේ ඇති කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් අන්න එදාට මම හිතනවා ගොඩක් ඉන්වෙස්ටර්ස්ලා ලංකාවේ කිසිම බයක් නැතුව ආයෝජනය කරන්න, ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන්න ඒ sooner or later somebody should change this situation in Sri Lanka. Good luck Sri Lanka. Thank you.